What's up, everybody? How the hell's it going out there? Well, this is my second or third attempt at making this video, but I figured I'm just going to go for it. I end up rambling too much about the subject matter, rambling too much about what's wrong with this entire system, what's wrong with the people, the passivity, and what they call outrage fatigue, which is kind of a half joke with people who are really upset about the way things are and not knowing where to lean and outlet their frustrations. And I totally understand where you're coming from. I've always had a passive attitude on YouTube. It's not because I don't realize what's going on in the world. It's because I want people to see that you can still be happy living in a corrupt world. But at times like this, when things are coming to such a head in my personal life, I figure it's time to speak out. I'm utilizing and catalyzing on this energy that I have due to the Kratom ban. And it's unleashed me on the prison system. Anybody who's been to jail knows how corrupt the prison system is. And it's, let's just say, to the least, I'm going to go ahead and read this article so I don't get too far into rambling. But the title is, Did You Know We're Having the Largest Prison Strike in History? Probably not, because most of the media have ignored it. The prison strike didn't merit a single mention in the New York Times, Washington Post, NPR, CNN, or MSNBC. Go figure with the rest of them. But not even NPR would mention this. And this is proving even further what I've said before, that NPR is nothing more than a bunch of liberal garbage that is the opposite end of the spectrum. But it says, thousands of prisoners in over 24 states began a labor strike on September 9th, the 45th anniversary of the Attica prison uprising, to demand better conditions in health care, the right to unionize, and what organization groups call an end to slavery in America. But one would hardly know it watching U.S. media, which has mainly ignored the largest prison labor strike in history. The largest in history. So, nobody's been covering it. I'm not going to get into the details. I'm going to allow you to do your own research. They'd like the strikes to remain pacifist and not to get violent. The problem is, and people don't realize this, if you're not getting violent and no damage is being accrued, then the outside sources in the news, which is separate from the prison system, cannot see what's actually going on. Prisoners can protest all they want. Nobody's paying attention except the family members and those who actually care. And that makes it very difficult for them to get their message across, which is why I'm sharing this with all of you. It may be easy to think, well, they're prisoners, they deserve it. Just think of the one guy that's there for a joint, for 30 years. These things happen. So, I'm not going to go read the entire article. It goes on to compare it to what's happening in Standing Rock, and I'd like to keep that as a separate incident I'd like to talk about later. But for those, who aren't aware that the U.S. has 25% of the world's prison population, okay? 25%, 1/4 of all the people in prison in the world are in prison in America. And we only have 5% of the population. So you can do the math on that. That's a significant increase, well over any other country that is not even worth discussing. The prison system that we have is a labor industry, and this is forced labor. And I'm going to tell you who are the main companies who profit off of this labor, because that's really the point I want to get across. It says, it talks about the reason why people are ignoring this, and it says, this reason doesn't fully explain the lack of mainstream coverage. A few outlets, as noted, have covered the strike to the extent they could, especially in the build-up to the protest. So it's not as if there weren't enough information to compile a story. One possible reason is that some of the corporate media's biggest advertisers are prison labor. So the disincentive to shine a light on the problem is high. AT&T, Bank of America, Chevron, Eli Lilly, Geico, McDonald's, and Walmart all use prison labor and are all sponsors of corporate media. So much we can recite their commercials by heart. One corporation that uses prison labor, Verizon, even owns major media outlets Yahoo and Huffington Post. I wasn't aware that Verizon owned Huffington Post. I think that the more we're able to expose these companies and why they're not allowing certain coverage, these are companies who say, I will pull your funding if you cover this. How dare you try to stop slave labor within the prison system? So these people are considered not even people. They're considered prisoners. Well, I'm not going to say that there aren't corrupt prisoners out there, but I am going to say that there's much of a more corrupt prison system. I'm not going to lean on the idea that it tends to single out, that it's racism, that it's the poor people that end up going to prison, that the fine system and the probation system keeps people poor, keeps people coming back. We all know this, or do we? I think a lot of people are completely unaware of how easy it is to get sucked into the system just for having a bag of weed in your pocket when you're 18 years old. So, without going too far into detail, all I want to do is urge all of you to share this information on this prison system, this prison uprising. These people are putting their necks out. These people are taking huge risks. This was a very well orchestrated event that required thousands of people, cell phones, communications, guards. They really want to be heard, and so I'm urging you to share this with people because maybe they can be heard. It's easy to ignore something when we can't see it and when it doesn't affect us directly, but it's important to pay attention. So, take care, everybody. Have a good